East on a Friday afternoon from New York for the weekend, and the first call she made was to the Pomfret to make reservations for Saturday night dinner. Frances was a long-time, loyal, and prominent member of the Pomfret Club, and the board of directors was so pleased to announce that we are making Frances our first member emeritus.
What does it say?
It says Frances R. Hesselbein, Pomfret Club Member Emeritus, March 13th, 2023. A loyal member who enjoyed sharing fine dining at the club with family and friends. CEO, Girl Scouts USA, 1976 to 1990. Founder, Leader to Leader Journal. Presidential Medal of Freedom recipient, 1991. Served everyone here. I'm in awe and at this moment just a little overwhelmed that we have arrived at this moment. Thank you to Karen and Joyce and everyone here at Pomfret for co-hosting our screening. We are so grateful as we could have our screening, our premiere screening, in no other place than Pomfret. A little story about how this came about. I was visiting my dad earlier this year in Arizona. As we do, we drove to get hay for the horses. It's about an hour and a half there and back, and we had to make the trip twice. So we had 3 hours together in the car, which as some of you know is when we do our best thinking. I gave him an update on our documentary and told him that I wanted to have a very special premiere screening, that it needed to be at Pomfret, it needed to be in Easton. That is what Frances would want. We spent the next 3 hours planning and describing just exactly how and when it would take place and who would attend. And here we are. Sometimes people ask me, why are you doing this? Why are you sharing Frances's story? Most easily put, to me, it's like having Abraham Lincoln as your best friend and mentor. I have to share her story. It is our promise to her that we carry the torch, and in all times, and especially these times, we cannot share who she was and how she led enough. So, not to spoil our cliffhanger, but for those of you who didn't know Frances, I want to share just a little bit about her to give you an inkling of who she was. Frances was born in Johnstown, Pennsylvania in 1915, where she lived for 60 years volunteering with the Girl Scouts, working with her husband John at their photography studio, and raising their son John. In 1976, she was appointed CEO of the Girl Scouts of the USA, where she led the complete transformation of the Girl Scouts, tripling minority membership, leading a staff of 780,000 volunteers, and growing total membership of Girl Scouts to 2.25 million girls. Frances was the first woman to grace the cover of Business Week, and the first woman to chair a United Way campaign. She was 1951 class chair at West Point for 2 years, and was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest award one can receive here, a civilian can receive here in the United States. There's much more you'll learn about in our documentary. Frances was a great leader. For 107 years, until she passed away in December of 2022, Frances was a mighty one, showing us by example what the principles of respect for all people, to serve is to live, and bright future look like when one lives them to the core. Frances was a hero, dear friend of the heart, and battle buddy to many of the people in this room who have supported us and encouraged us in the making of this documentary. We are so very grateful for your encouragement. Here I would like to give special thanks to all of the friends of Frances, especially those who are here tonight: Diane Ryan, Darlene Bailey, Carrie Ward, Sue Neiman, Francie Ekman, and Carrie Truman. These incredibly heart-based and accomplished women were all mentored by Frances over the years and were the core of our weekly calls with Frances during COVID. We continue to support each other and to work together to carry the torch of how to be principles-based leadership that Frances carried for all of us for so long. Thank you to our documentarians, David Schler and Beverly Jacobson Schler, for your dedication to telling Frances' story. You could not have been more providentially chosen for this project. To our friends at the United Way, especially Marcy Westhouse, Laura McHugh, and Matt Falcone, who are here tonight and have been so enthusiastic and supportive of our project as our fiduciary advocates. Thank you to my dear friend Doug Baker, who introduced me to David and Beverly, to our wonderful Greenwood neighbors, Dale and Mary Jo, and to Jim Coley, otherwise known as our guy, to our dear friend of the heart and road coach, Carol DaCosta, a heartfelt thank you. And the most important thank you to my dad, who along with Frances and Alvin Mullally is my daily source of inspiration and encouragement. And without whom you all might be, but I most assuredly would not. Finally, thank you to everyone not here tonight who has been involved in the making of this documentary. Without you, this documentary would not be possible. And with that, I would like to bring up David Schler, our director, to say a few words about Frances and his experience making the final films.
Frances is a reminder to each of us about the ripple effect that we have on other people's lives. When my wife and partner Beverly and I were first introduced to Frances through Doug Baker and Sarah, we had never heard of Frances. So the process of creating the documentary was a fascinating and inspiring journey of discovery, guided by Sarah and unfolding through an array of individuals who all had one thing in common: their admiration and love of Frances. But even before we started down this path of discovery, the guiding star was Frances herself. As we said yes to doing our part in sharing her story after reading her words, the call for leaders who are healers and unifiers must be heard. Wherever we are, whatever our work, whatever our platform or forum, from the water cooler to the stadium, we must find the language that heals, the inclusion that unifies. It is a critical time for leaders at every level to make a difference. Beverly and I realize that now, at this point in time, is the right time for Frances' story to be told to others who have never heard of Frances Hesselbein, and to be shared once again by all of you who knew and loved her. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, for asking me to speak about Frances this evening. I'm deeply honored to be here. Frances Hesselbein. We all know the basics. Sarah went over many of these items. She was CEO of several organizations, including the Girl Scouts of the USA, a board member on many boards, and often a committee chair on those same boards. She was an author, an editor, and a recipient of many, many honorary degrees, medals, coins, recognitions, and awards, including the Presidential Medal of Freedom. She was a Pennsylvanian to the core, as many of you know, and an American of profound patriotism. I remember pulling into her driveway in my blue car as we were returning from dinner at the Pomfret, and seeing the delight on her face as the porch light proudly illuminated her flag at her Easton home. She was profoundly proud of her family's Army service and relished her time at the West Point. And of course, she cherished her beloved Pomfret family here in this room, where she dined frequently and had many, many friends. If you met her, even just once, whether you were a CEO or her waiter for the evening, you likely noticed that she was totally focused on you if you were in front of her. She was unwavering in her approach to the respect for the individual. She was steadfast and true to her values. She never used labels. She never made judgmental comments or discriminated against anyone. What amazed me was even later in life, she was always on, always focused on listening, on guiding you to discover your true destiny, and nudging you with questions. In her leadership roles, she was always positive. She led by being authentic, by being consistent, and by connecting people in her vast, vast network. When presented with a problem that she felt needed to be solved, she would reach out to friends, colleagues, connections, and tap someone to help her lead the effort to find a solution. A school library in the Bronx was suddenly full of books, and new textbooks were found for the students. West Point cadets enjoyed leadership presentations from the greatest thinkers and writers on leadership in this country. They also listened to the personal stories of top leaders from various public and private sectors. All of the friends of Frances were her friends. Whether it was a small group of individuals who were supported her during the last few months of her life, several here tonight, as Sarah mentioned, or to the wider collection of friends in the world who loved what Frances represented. We all listened to her rich stories and shared our own with her, and this filled her world with love, with peace, and most importantly, with a human connection. I believe this last fact contributed more to her longevity than anything else. Personally, she taught me grace, how not to make judgments, how not to apply labels, and perhaps more importantly, how to pay the bill before it came to the table. So there could not be any argument about who was paying. She always feigned anger, but I know that she secretly appreciated being treated as my special guest. Additionally, she taught me how to think beyond my community, about broader issues and concepts, and how they could be applied to improve the community. That pesky question that kept coming up, to paraphrase Peter Drucker, when you look out of the window, what do you see that is visible but not yet seen by others? I am sure I tested Frances's patience down that long and winding road as I tried to grasp this concept. She taught me to sit in my learnings and my experience and look at the world through my accumulated wisdom and extrapolate to logical ideas and conclusions, and to see what I personally saw in my field of expertise that was not yet seen by others, based solely on my perspective. With unwavering, dogged persistence, she succeeded in opening up my linear logical thinking to appreciate a wider worldview and the potential impact that one person could have on their community. Frances has left a literal army of advocates, spreading her methods, her approach, her leadership, her thinking, her words, each one of us taking a small piece of that whole and spreading it within our circles of influence. And as our circles overlap, we learn from each other. Defining Moments is another such avenue to spread Frances's inspiration and wisdom and reinforce our collective impact. Thank you. As Sarah makes her way back to the podium, I would like to take a minute to recognize this moment as the culmination of Sarah's vision and her perseverance in the creation of this documentary. Without her Frances-like dogged determination and her leadership, this film would not exist. Congratulations, Sarah, on this tremendous accomplishment.
Well, thank you, dear friends and Frances. It's time to watch Defining Moments. The life and leadership of quiet revolutionary Frances Hesselbein, who served